In a small, forgotten village nestled deep in the woods, there was an old house no one dared to enter. The villagers spoke of strange happenings around it, the kind of stories that made even the bravest shudder. For decades, the house had been abandoned. Yet it never decayed. Its windows, though grimy, never cracked. Its door, though weathered, was always slightly ajar, as if inviting someone in. But no one ever accepted. Not after the last person who went inside, the schoolteacher, Mrs. Evelyn, was found trembling at the edge of the village, unable to speak. Her once dark hair turned stark white. She disappeared shortly after, and no one saw her again. One autumn night, when the air had a strange chill, Jacob, a curious young man new to the village, decided to test the truth of the tales. He wasn't like the others. He didn't believe in curses or ghosts. He believed in adventure, in unraveling the unknown. And so, with a lantern in hand, he made his way to the old house. The door creaked as he pushed it open. The inside was just as the villagers had described, silent, untouched by time. Cobwebs hung thick in the corners, and the air smelled of damp wood. But there was something else, a faint sound, like distant whispers, just at the edge of his hearing. Jacob pressed on, telling himself it was nothing. As he moved deeper into the house, the whispers grew louder, but they weren't just voices. They were calling his name. Jacob, come closer. He froze. His heart raced, but curiosity overpowered his fear. He followed the voices up the stairs to the second floor. The steps creaked beneath his feet as though they hadn't been walked on in years. At the end of the hallway stood a door, one that was slightly ajar. Inside was a room filled with shadows, but they weren't natural. The lantern's light seemed to struggle against them, bending in ways that made no sense. The whispers were now all around him, circling like a storm. Jacob, we've been waiting. His breath caught in his throat. As his eyes adjusted, he saw something, a figure in the corner, hunched and barely visible in the shadows. It moved unnaturally, shifting in and out of sight as though it was both there and not there at the same time. "Who are you?" Jacob asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. The figure turned slowly, and Jacob saw its face, blank, featureless except for its eyes that weren't human. They were hollow, endless, pulling him in. And then it smiled, a terrible, twisted smile that seemed to stretch beyond its face. Before Jacob could move, the shadows around him shifted, reaching out like cold fingers, wrapping around his legs, his arms. The whispers turned into laughter, soft but menacing. "You came. Now you'll never leave." The shadows tightened, pulling him toward the figure. He tried to scream, but no sound came out. The last thing Jacob saw before the darkness consumed him was that smile, growing wider and wider. The next morning, the villagers found the old house just as it always had been, silent still. But Jacob was never seen again. From that day forward, the whispers grew louder around the house, calling out for someone new. And sometimes, if you stand close enough, you can hear a voice among them, a voice that sounds eerily like Jacob's. And it, too, whispers your name.